Okay, so the primary issue with this chart is, well, Black Moon Lilith is on Chiron again, which, Black Moon Lilith is a shadow. And Neptune has moved into Taurus. And so what happens with Neptune is when it gets into Aries, things start to heat up. I think we'll actually see it even this summer. But when Neptune gets into Aries, things will start to heat up, and like more than we've ever seen before. I mean, it will be like we're turning the entire planet into the equator. If you've ever spent time in a country close to the equator, like I was down in Costa Rica in November and December, and it was so sweltering hot. I had never, ever been in a climate like that before. I mean, I just sweat 24/7. Like I could not stop sweating. And if I went anywhere, as soon as I got back, I had to get into a room with some air conditioning to cool my body down, because I just wasn't acclimatized to it. Well, that's what the whole world's going to end up looking like when Neptune goes into Aries. The whole planet is going to heat up like that. The whole planet is going to be like the weather at the equator, like Costa Rica. Which, Costa Rica is a nice place, but believe me, if you've never been there, you have no idea how hot it is. I mean, literally, you're sweating 24/7, and that's the way it's going to be. Everything's going to be like that. The whole country, the whole world is going to be like an equatorial jungle or a desert. So it just depends, because different places will be impacted in different ways. Some places will look like the Mojave Desert or the Sahara Desert. Other places will feel like an equatorial jungle, but it will definitely be heating up. There's no doubt about that. And more greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, and all the ice melting. So that's what's going to happen during, I think it's about 13 years. Let's see this. I'm not sure exactly what year Neptune moves into Aries, but I think it's in there for about 13 or 14 years. And then it will move into Taurus in the summer of 2038. And this is when the water starts to move onto the land. I mean, it will actually be happening even before that. It's just that this is the point where they will no longer be able to deal with it. It won't recede. They won't be, it's like any attempt that they make to put up seawalls or use other kinds of technology or construction or pumping it out will virtually become impossible. And they'll just start giving up the land to the sea. And that will take 13 years for Neptune to completely move through Taurus. And so during those 13 years, we'll be, now I want to be very clear, this is going to be happening even before 2038. I'm just saying by 2038, they give it up to the sea. Like they've tried and tried and tried and tried and tried. Between 2020, because I think we're actually going to see record heat this summer. So between now and 2038, which is 18 years, that's one generation. So all the children being born today, when they graduate, the sea will be swallowing up the coastlines and the coastal cities, mostly Florida. And yeah, Florida will be hardest hit, because the East Coast will be the hardest hit because of the hurricanes in the Atlantic, and also the Gulf Coast will be hardest hit. That's why Florida will take the most intense hit, is because has both coastlines. And I think that the Pacific coastline needs to be concerned as well. I just think it will be harder hit in the Atlantic and the Gulf. And some of those coastlines and coastal cities will be literally swallowed up. So once it hits that point, they pretty much give it up. They say, okay, we can't fight this anymore. We just have to accept this as reality. And then for 13 years, the sea will move on to the land and swallow up the coastlines and swallow up the cities, the coastal cities. And that will take 13 years to basically complete that process. And then it will pretty much stabilize by the time we get to 2052. So, but what's interesting is once we get done with the water, the sea levels have now stabilized at the level that they're going to be at. They're basically not going to rise anymore. They've finished. All the ice has been melted. You know, the sea level has reached its maximum level. It's swallowed up all the land it's going to swallow up, and it's stabilizing now. But at this point, Pluto moves into a T-square to the ascendant and Uranus of the United States. This is power. Down here, you know, Saturn is authority, Mars is the warrior and everything to do with the military, and Pluto is power, and it's down here in the 4th house, which also rules it rules our land, but also the White House, and it's squaring the ascendant and Uranus. And then Jupiter and Uranus are up here at Neptune again. So once again, we're back into the battle of power. Who gets the power? Who gets the wealth? So it's all about power, wealth, and individual freedom again. So, you know, the pendulum is always swinging. But I think the thing to consider here after taking that trip in the time machine is, first of all, everything is cyclical. The pendulum is always swinging back and forth. There's no way to get rid of that. That's just part of nature. But the other problem to consider is that our economy is no longer going to be a growth economy. Our economy is no longer going to be a consumption economy. We've reached that limit. We've reached that end. We've hit that wall. We're never going back to an infinitely growing economy or infinite consumption, and hopefully also not infinite population growth, because 1 billion people will be displaced from the coastlines and coastal cities, and those people have to go somewhere. So that's going to be a lot of people to try to relocate. And so, you know, if the population is growing at the same time, it's just going to magnify the problem. So, but, you know, I guess that's, at this point, that's individual choice. You know, people want to have babies and don't care whether their children are going to have a good life. That, I guess that's their business. I can't, I would suggest, you know, limiting family sizes, because it's going to be a rough road ahead for the kids being born today. So, you know, but again, that's not my choice. It's just what I see in the future. And then, but since we'll no longer have an infinitely growing economy and a consumption economy, that means that we'll have to deal with the transition. I think that's why the next 5 years is going to be so difficult, is because we are in that adjustment phase no matter who wins the presidency. We've got a very, very difficult transition ahead of us. And then on top of that, once that's done, then we have to deal with the fact that we will be losing land, literally. Our country will literally be shrinking. And that's going to put a tremendous amount of pressure on all the people who live in this country. Because right now we have 330 million-ish people. And on the amount of land that we have right now, and that land is literally going to shrink. The amount of land we will have in 2052, which is 32 years from now, which might sound like a long time, but it's not. That time, for those of us, you know, in our later years, either won't be around or that time will fly by. And so, like I said, the children born today will have a lot of problems to deal with, because we will have literally less land. The United States will shrink. So if the population expands, we have to put that larger population on a smaller piece of land. So that's just something to consider, because, you know, if people know what the future looks like, then maybe they can make better choices. Okay, that's it for your time machine trip. And I will come back and make some more detailed videos that kind of take a slower trip through time, and try to show you what's coming, particularly in 2020, because we're still in 2020. All right, so I will talk to you again in my next video. Take care. Bye-bye.